goes
Wait
up.
a minute. What do you mean by pure stand-up?
As in, like, more like
You think freestyle.
improv, like freestyle. Yeah.
Oh my god, is that what you think? Oh my god, baby, I wish.
No?
You have to.
There's no.
Write.
I don't think anyone
We
does that.
rewrite. We rewrite.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Vibes Podcast, episode number 14. I'm your co-host, Matt, and that's
Ted.
all right. And we have a very special guest today, Mary Basmadjian, funny Armenian girl.
Oh, thank you, you guys. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, thanks for coming. So, I guess what I'd like to start with is the fact that you chose the comedian route, right? It's something that it's an industry that's extremely difficult to get into, right? It's kind of like when I was a kid, I told my dad I want to be a basketball player, and he's like, "Dude, go get a real job, right?
Yeah.
You're never gonna get that. It's 1 in a million, right?
Yeah.
You're never gonna."
I feel like it fits in there.
And yeah, I mean, no, it's extremely difficult, and you chose a difficult route, and you obviously need to have talent. You can't just decide I want to be a comedian. So
If only more people knew that.
yeah. I mean, it's funny you say that because I even want to be a comedian. I'm like, dude, there's no way I can go in front of like people. When I was like 10, I'm like, dude, I think I could be funny, but there's no chance.
Hey, you're a funny guy.
You're a funny guy. But what would you say sparked that interest of becoming a comedian?
I've always liked telling stories. Like I'd be at high school parties, and I would be talking about what happened to me on the bus on the way to school, and just like saying stories. And then one day I went to a show at the Ice House in Pasadena, and I was like, holy shit, I think I want to do this. And then they were passing out flyers for, it's called Stand Up Academy. And I went, and it's classes, but it's not like you get homework or anything. It's just you try out material that you write every week.
And how old were you?
This was high school, you said?
No, this was after high school.
Okay.
So this was it'll be 8 years in April.
Okay.
Wow.
So I don't know. Well, first of all, do you know how old I am?
No.
Okay, great. No, I'm 30 now.
Okay. So 8 years ago, 22.
Yeah, 22.
Okay.
And that's how I got into it. And I was doing it before like Instagram and Vine and all that other good stuff.
Yeah.
I actually had my video on YouTube, and I hashtagged funny Armenian girl, thinking, oh, this is like something common that I feel like people will search it. And then that took off and got like 40,000 hits.
Wow. It was a specific video when you were performing at a show?
Just a stand-up comedy.
This is 8 years ago on YouTube.
Yeah,
without even Instagram, nothing.
None of
And
that.
YouTube was not really too
Poppin',
big.
yeah,
No.
It was just like a
And
random...
so that's, my friends were just like, you really got to do something. You really got to go for it. And I have my friends to really thank them to like, pushing me to go for it.
So at 22 years old, you had this courage to just go in front of people and just start telling jokes?
Kind of.
Man.
Wow.
I would be so like...
You know what I'm still blown away from is that it got 30,000 views and it's you hashtag funny Armenian girl. I'm assuming you talked about the Armenian culture and
I did.
And like your viewers or your followers had to be mostly majority Armenian. And the fact that 30 to 40,000 Armenians were watching you, that's insane.
Like, social
on
media.
YouTube, yeah, like did they even know how to? Yeah, that's crazy.
And I feel like back then, I was doing a little bit less Armenian material than I am now. But it was like an introduction to non-Armenian comedy side, and that's how I kind of like, I was like, I should really tone into the Armenian side of things. And
so one of my favorite types of comedies is like making fun of your own things, right? Like making fun of your own, let's say, race, but not making fun of, just like making jokes, right?
Yeah.
Like Armenians have this stereotype, things like that.
Stereotypes,
Yeah. So what made you, like, I guess, is that where you didn't start there? What were your jokes before you, like...
My jokes have always been based on personal experiences, observation, and personal things to myself. I honestly feel like the best comedy comes from truth,
right?
And whatever is true to yourself. That's why sometimes, like, I don't, like, people are like, oh, can I write some jokes for you? I'm like, nah, that wouldn't be me. That wouldn't be my voice. And so, that I was just writing about, and I still write about myself. I still do non-Armenian shows, just because, I produce an Armenian monthly show. It's kind of overthrown my comedy career a little bit.
Okay, what is it called?
It's called Armenian AllStars.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. Yeah. But That's awesome. And then you just developed into like, and then what would you say? Would you say that after that YouTube video that got you 30,000, is that what took off? After that, you're like, I'm gonna become a comedian?
No, I wasn't even paying attention to the numbers, to tell you the truth. My friend brought it to my attention. The thing that got me, well, first, the very first time that I performed, like, you get a high from it.
Right.
Like, you get this rush and you're like, oh my God, especially when you get the first laugh. That's it.
It's like you
That's
calm down a little
yeah,
bit.
and I always heard people say this, that they're in the zone, but I never understood what it meant until that day on the stage. And so the thing that kept me going, I was like, I have to keep doing this. Like, I really like it, but it was very far in between. It was like once a month or like every 2 months, because I was still scared. But I was just like, I got to keep doing this. I got to keep doing this.
Do you remember your first joke that got you your first laugh?
That's 8 years ago.
I know.
I don't know. Maybe.
Wait, can we cuss on
Yeah,
it?
go.
I smoke a lot of weed. Okay. I can't remember that. Like,
that's okay.
But I do remember being really nervous, and then I said something, and my facial expressions play a really big role in my comedy. And then I did that, and then like the room erupted, and then I was like, oh. And then I just went from there. But I can't remember yet.
That's
awesome. Yeah, I feel like it only takes that one, and then you're like, okay, I'm in. You know, I'm in, and I can just comfortably speak.
It's like I got their approval, and their approval is like laughing.
Would you say you're funny when you were a kid? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
No, go for it.
I was, because I would. It's kind of bad, but I would make fun of my grandpa and my grandma. Like I would imitate them.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I got a response from my family. They would laugh, and I'd be like, okay, cool. So this is what I'm going to do.
I am actually funny.
Yeah.
Speaking of family, how did they take that like transition from you saying, F it, I'm going to go this comedian route? Like, were they saying like, Mary, no, don't do that. You don't want people to go get a regular job. You don't want people laughing at you. Like, did you get that same stereotype that I feel like any Armenian parent would?
You know, and that's a good question, because my background is a little bit untraditional. I lived with my grandparents when I was 12.
Okay.
And that gave me the absolute freedom to do whatever the I wanted to. But when my mom and dad kind of like, and I never really told them, I just did it. And then they saw it, and they were, at first my mom wasn't happy because I was making fun of her in one of the jokes. She's like, take it down. I was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Real.
It's real. Yeah. And that's why I'm able to do what I do, because I have the freedom to do it from a non-traditional standpoint, but I still know the world of an Armenian girl. But I'm able to speak because some of them, like, they have strict dads or brothers.
Definitely.
And I don't have that.
That's cool that you have the freedom, because I feel like that sparks a lot of creativity. Because you're able to do whatever you want to do. Like you said.
Mean, I think it's like people connect more with people that are real. Like, even comparing it to this podcast. So we had two routes to go. One, like, be like all professional, not cuss, and not be ourselves, you know, like, or we could have said just it. We're going to try to like go the natural route and be ourselves, you know? And I feel like that's what will catch people's attention, right? Being you, because there's so many fakes out there, or just like, you look like a news reporter, you know, just like talking regular talk. But when you're actually you, people catch on and they see that genuineness in you and they follow you. So, with that said, what would you say? Sorry, my phone. I feel like your Instagram, your social media had a big impact on, let's say, your fame, right? Would you agree?
Yes, and I call it popularity and not fame, because I feel really weird about it.
Yeah, it's like cringy to say.
Yeah, because it's just to the Armenian community, I feel like, you know. Now, if I hit where like Tiffany Haddish is right now, like she has a book out, movie out, everything, then I'll be like, hell yeah, I'm famous. Yeah, like, but popularity, absolutely. About 4 years ago, I was like, you know what, I want to do videos too. Like, let's see where this goes. And it took off. And the hashtags, I hashtagged the out of the page.
What do you hashtag?
Funny Armenian girl.
Okay.
That's my main hashtag. And then hashtag comedy, hashtag stand-up comedy, hashtag Armenian Burbank, Hollywood, like everything that you could think of, just that slew of hashtags. That was me.
That's smart.
Yeah, and so it did play a really big role on my comedy career, I feel like, and I feel really grateful for it as well.
At some point, Instagram didn't have video. I can't imagine how like game changer that was. I remember
when it didn't have video.
Well, I was just posting pictures and
Like memes and stuff
yeah,
like that?
like memes and things like that. But I wasn't too like I would advertise my comedy shows, but I wasn't using it too much for comedy. But I did gain a little bit of popularity on Instagram because I was I was like doing Weight Watchers at the time,
Okay.
and I would post pictures of the food and points and things like that.
So,
I gained
was
followers.
it a
like that.
comedic route or just,
Not really. I wasn't using it at first for comedic route. And then when the first video took off and I realized what's happening, I had to go back and delete my personal things and delete other stuff.
and just make it all
Make
about,
it comedy, yeah.
of course. Okay, that's awesome. And then, when did you start? I guess well, you mentioned it, but Flappers.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start this comedy club, or did they reach out to you? You reached out to them? How does this work?
No, honestly, you just have to get up and go. The first time when I went about 4 years ago, I was on Facebook and I saw that there's this show and it was called Armenian Nights.
Okay.
It was produced by Michael Grigorian.
Okay.
And I was like, what the is this? I'm the funny Armenian girl. I should be on this. So I bought a ticket and I went as an audience member. And then afterwards, I approached him, the producer, and I said, listen, I'm Mary Basmadjian. I'm the funny Armenian girl. You need me on your show.
Okay.
No, and he was like, yeah, I saw your stuff on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. And then we just linked up like that. If it was a non-Armenian, I would have done the same thing for a non-Armenian show. If you want to be on a show, you go, you pay your respects, you do what you got to do, and you approach the producer in a nice way. That's how you kind of get into it. But that's how I got in with Grigorian, and we were doing Armenian Nights up until, was it last summer? I left Armenian Nights, and in January I started Armenian AllStars.
Okay.
And Armenian AllStars it's going to be 1 year in January that we've been at Flappers.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I was with Armenian Nights, and then we kind of switched over to Armenian AllStars.
And were you the only one from that crew that came to Armenian AllStars?
No. No. There was we had to grow. My popularity took off. See, before, when I went into Armenian Nights, I didn't have the Instagram popularity. I didn't have any of that stuff going. And everybody contributed to all of our comedy careers growing in a different way. And then I just felt like, you know what, I want to produce because I really loved the production side of things. So I wanted to produce, and I started to produce. And a couple of other guys, Mofsa Shakarian and Michael Passion, also came with me to Armenian AllStars. So they are co-producers of Armenian AllStars.
Okay. And how often do you guys perform there?
Every month.
Every month.
Yeah,
Okay. And you guys have this next one coming up December 17th. But
Yes.
unfortunately, we're going to probably
Podcast.
release this after.
No problem. The next one is January 7, and we're
Nice.
totally making like an Armenian Christmas theme.
Okay.
And
Oh,
we're
nice.
So
January 7th.
So
Yeah.
for our non-Armenian viewers, Armenian Christmas is different
January
than
6th,
yeah, it's not
and,
the typical.
And for your non-Armenian listeners and viewers, it's called Armenian AllStars, but we speak in English.
Oh,
and
nice.
And the only Armenian comics usually on there is me, Michael, and Mofses. We just call it Armenian AllStar because the name gets the people
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And I kind of describe it in a way like when you go to George Lopez comedy and he speaks kind of Spanish.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
understand
yeah.
it. That's what I'm
That's
going
perfect.
for.
Nice.
And so I saw like the picture of you guys all on stage. So it's not like the standard when some guy comes on and just holds a mic and speaks. It's like a show going on.
Well, we do stand-up comedy.
Okay.
So it's stand-up comedy, and sometimes we do improv. Like me, Michael, and Mofsis will go up there and we'll do improv, or we'll do a sketch that we've written because we want to like kind of mix it up and try something a little bit different to have sketch and stand-up. But it is a stand-up comedy show.
So okay, it's because I know there are people that do the Armenian shows, but they have like a whole actual show that they perform on stage. It's different than that, or is that more so the Big Bad Armo show that?
What? Yeah, the sketch comedy is like play on stage.
Which is the Big Bad Armo show?
Yes.
Okay.
And with Armenian AllStars, we also write, and we sometimes we're like, if we want to mix it up, we want to give the crowd something different than just stand up. We throw in a sketch every now and then.
Okay.
But the full-on sketch comedy is the Big Bad Armo show. It is written and directed and produced by Lori Tatulian, and she's been doing it for about 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
you guys, this is hilarious.
Where is that at?
Yeah, where do you guys?
That's going to be at the Colony Theater in Burbank. That's December 27, 28, and 29.
Okay. They'll catch that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, and that one is really funny. That one is also, it has some English, but a lot more Armenian.
Okay.
And it's just in Burbank. Do you guys have different shows, or is you guys specifically that Colony Theater all the time?
The Big Bad Armo show kind of happens about once a year, twice a year. This one, it's in Colony Theater. We might do it at another theater the next time we do it.
Okay.
I'm curious. Do you still get nervous when you go on stage?
Absolutely.
Every time.
Every
You
time.
get freaked out.
Every time. And people are like, what the is wrong with you? But I don't care. Like, I always get really, really nervous.
I feel like it's like the first couple minutes and before like you like get in your zone, right? Like
That's actually a cool thing to have because you still get that rush.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that's what drives most of like your like comedy like kind of aspiration coming is from that rush.
Yeah, you're always like
you're always gonna have that rush.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when you go on a roller coaster and like, holy but you know what it feels like, but you still get that rush.
Yeah, and if I didn't feel nervous, I feel like afterwards I wouldn't have anything to feel towards it. Like if I wasn't nervous, it'd be like whatever.
Then it would be just a boring everyday job.
Exactly.
You're like, I'm just going to work.
Exactly.
Damn, that's awesome.
So, for someone that's trying to be a comedian, okay, what would you recommend they start with? Would you say social media is the move?
Yes and no. I'm seeing a lot of people like have success with the social media, but if we want to talk about real stand up, go to the open mics. Go on Google open mics in LA. There's a list of open mics. Go out into the zone. Go into the jungle and do it. Don't just be in your room on your camera, because I do that. And
I think a lot has changed from the traditional comedy. Now it's like people have like 1 million followers on, let's say, Instagram, but they're not comedians. They just like, it's not traditional. It's just like social media comedy.
And I've seen that like crash and burn live.
Yeah.
Like they'll book this guy thinking he has millions of followers and all this. And then like, and this was at the Comedy Store. He sucked. Like, it was so bad. And you know, with stand-up comedy, as an audience member, you want the comedian to do good. Because it's awkward when they don't. You know what I mean?
Oh, my God.
And so millions of followers doesn't necessarily equal being funny.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I mean, I just feel like being just on your phone, I could probably record 30 times and at some point find a funny one and people will think I'm funny. But like a true test of being a comedian would be performing it live, going on stage and seeing if you're actually funny or not.
And you get reactions from people live. Like, if you're not funny, they're not going to laugh.
but let's be real for a sec. Have you ever bombed?
Let me see. I'm trying to remember. The only true time I bombed was when I was booked to do this church show. And they wanted me to do it in Armenian. And I was like, I'll try, but it doesn't really translate. So it was a bunch of like really older Armenian women. Back then I didn't have much of a following. And they were just kind of like, what is she doing? But then like the priest got up and he killed.
No way.
Because I was like, do you think you're going to get into heaven if you laugh at his jokes? Like, what the fuck? And that was like I get really thing about that.
Wow. I mean, do you find your shows, do you find like, I'm assuming your audience is like anywhere from like 18-year-old to like 35, 40-year-olds. Am I right? I mean, I feel like a 55-year-old wouldn't have the same sense of humor as we would.
I thought that, but there's actually
they do.
Yeah.
I feel like they're definitely, your audience is way more broader than that.
Yes.
So you get people from...
Absolutely. I feel like I do, because especially when I do the videos and I'm more of like, I'm cussing and I'm more open, it brings the older heads that are open out.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I've noticed that.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's just all walks of life come in. And
yeah, I feel like even my parents, when I mentioned that you were coming on the show, they're like, oh, of course I know. They saw like, because they're getting kind of like more into the social media aspect of it, and they've seen like your Instagram, your feed and stuff like that.
And I have like grandmas that love me, and
because
I'm just like,
you show up on the explore pages a lot of the times, especially like geographically, like in Glendale, Burbank area. If you go on an explore page, you're
which
majority
is why
of the time.
I do those hashtags.
Yeah, that really helps.
That's smart. Yeah, I mean that kind of translates to even this podcast. We need to like find the correct hashtags to like get people like in Glendale, Burbank to see what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very smart idea. Now, one thing that we should definitely discuss, which is important as Armenians, is the Board of Equality Armenia, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'm on the board of Equality Armenia. It was started by Armenian AllStars, and it's a fairly new group, and our mission statement basically is to bring marriage equality to Armenia. Currently there's an LGBTQ community in Armenia, and they're called Pink Armenia. They just celebrated their 10th anniversary, which I was like, wow, 10 years in Armenia.
Yeah,
Like,
wow.
that was
How did
unheard
you?
of. Yeah, and we December 2nd we just did a show, like a comedy fundraiser type thing for Pink Armenia, and with Mofses Shakarian, of course, and he's actually Mofses Shakarian is a gay Armenian comedian, and the first time I saw him was at the Armenian Nights show I bought the ticket for to go and see, and the first joke, and I always say this story because it's hilarious to me. The first joke he does, he's like, I used to suck dick for coke. 1 out of 2 isn't bad. And I was like, oh. And then there was like Armenian men sitting in the front. I was like, they are going to beat him up after the show.
Yeah.
And then they just like, they were really cool. And they're like, oh, but that was so funny. This is that. Like, they gave him props. And I was like, what is
Things are
going?
changing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I feel like comedy has like a big
Definitely.
role to play in it. It kind of relaxes people a little bit.
I mean,
That's
I feel like with comedy, you can talk about, as long as there's some boundaries, you can pretty much talk about anything. And because like you have to be loose with it. Like you can't just be uptight. Like I feel like if you're going to a comedy show, you gotta
You can't.
expect it.
You gotta go in with a smile already. If you go in like with a frown on, like get the hell out of there.
I remember we went to like a comedy show. I don't know who it was, but they started making fun of us. We were like right in front, and they saw us and started picking on us, and we were just cracking up. You know? Like I've been to shows where this guy's picking on like a heckler or something, and like these guys get mad. They're like, "Yo, like don't make fun of me. Do your show." Like, bro, why are you coming here if you don't have a sense of humor?
Yeah. And a lot of times with the heckling, the comedian wants to get the heckler back.
Oh, yeah.
That's why. Because you spoke. You shouldn't have spoke.
Disrespect that.
Like, that's what it was. But I also think it is important for cool, laid, chilled back people to sit in the front. You know what I mean? It's inevitable. It's going to happen. They're going to, like, look at you and say something.
Yeah.
That's going back to that. I think that's, I don't like the idea of that, how you can mix comedy with the whole, like, it's a very touchy subject, especially when it comes to Armenians. I still like, that's an awesome idea, but I want to know who thought of like to do that, and like how did they, like, when did you guys realize to bring in comedy with and mesh the two together
with Equality Armenia?
Yeah,
Armenian AllStars is the one who started this, and I could definitely give you his contact information so you can interview him if you want to. As far as like bringing comedy into this, last year when he was the president of GALAS, which is the Gay and Lesbian Armenian Society in LA, he also threw a party for Pink Armenia to raise money, and me, Mofses, and a couple of other comedians, non-Armenian comedians, did a show, and it was a fundraiser again, so we wanted to do it again this year, and we figured, join the two things that we enjoy, and that's how we went about it.
And
they mesh well.
And when you say marriage equality, are you talking about just legalize gay marriage?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Yes. I mean, here's my question to you. Do you think that matters that much? Like, let's just say I like someone, right? And I get married. I don't get married to them. I'm in love with them. I'm with them. I'm like, they live with me, everything. I'm in love with them. Just putting that marriage logo on it, do you think that makes that big of a difference?
Absolutely, it does.
You get a lot of government.
Our entire culture is based on you have to get married and have kids.
Sure, but look, gay people, lesbian people, they're already facing that difficult, that stigma, like, yo, you can't be this, you're Armenian, blah blah. Why the do they care what other people think, or like this logo, this branding of marriage, right? Or we have to get married to have kids? Why? Have you ever thought about that? Like, with that word,
it's just I think, sorry, I know you cut you off, but equality. I mean, it's, why is it
not
that
saying equality
because
or not
we
equality.
get straight people get benefits that when you're married, that now because they can't
like
get married,
taxes?
whatever it may be, a lot of things, financially, taxes, all that things. But I don't know if you
ultimately, I myself, I'm a heterosexual female. I'm not gay. But the thing is, I can't speak for them fully. But what I can say is if I have like the right to get married to someone, like to just, I'm personally not that much, like, I don't know if I'll get married in a church or not, but if this person wants to get married in a church and they're religious and they want to have that aspect of it, who am I to say, why is it important to you?
Yeah.
Maybe it's important to that person. Me personally, I think marriage is a crock of
Right.
but, if that person
They
wants
just deserve to have it if they want it. Got it.
It's just like, imagine I had Jesus, let that bike pass.
I thought you said you had Jesus. I'm like, you got Jesus like that, bro.
If I had like this T-shirt, for example, and then I said, "Yo, you can't have it,"
But I don't even want it. But just the fact that if I ever wanted it, I should be able
But
to
it
have
makes you want it
That's
kind
the
of.
thing.
I feel like it kind of makes you want it more though.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's probably what brings a lot of that outrage. It's like, hey, you can't have this, but I can have it, kind of thing. Sorry.
And also, right now in Armenia, if you're married, like let's say you're married in California, you're a man and you're married to another man in California. If you go to Armenia, your marriage is recognized by the government. So you can't necessarily get married there, but your marriage is recognized.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's called tourism.
Wow.
Yeah, because if gay people, like, let's just say tourism is working out good, right? And then let's say like a big portion of like they're like, no, your marriage isn't recognized here. I would feel like the LGBTQ community would be like, well, you know what? It, we're not gonna go there. And a lot of people like that might not know about this, especially in the Armenian community. I feel like the gay community has a lot of I forgot how to say that, a lot of disposable income.
Okay.
Okay. Like most of them are pretty wealthy. They don't have kids. Like, so yeah, they have money and they want to travel.
Yeah.
And obviously I think that's what happened when they were like, okay, the marriage is recognized here, but you can't get married here.
Yeah.
Like,
That's smart.
Spitting in your face. I
yeah.
think.
I
That's a smart
it's,
marketing kind of.
And that's what just we're working on. And I know like the idea is so crazy because we think of like Armenia and we think of like the first Christian nation in the world and everything. Like religion is such a big thing in our culture. But when I brought this up too, because I myself was like, this is crazy. This is such an insane idea.
Big thing to kind of
and Moses was like, back in like 2008 when I was protesting for gay rights here, I didn't think it would be possible, and now he's married. So he's like, if anything is possible.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta come up with like the crazy ideas have to be your passion. They have to like you can't think small at all, because if you achieve this small goal, it's like, okay, whatever, I could have done more. There's always like you could do more. It just you have to get that in your mindset and just go after. And I feel like anything is possible because they didn't think weed would be legalized. They didn't think
exactly.
But I also believe a lot in timing. Timing has a lot to do with everything.
If you don't push for it, you think, oh, okay, in 5 years it'll settle down. No, but if you push for it and you bring awareness to it, it'll speed it up for sure.
Sure, yeah, I think bringing awareness is a big thing. But like if I said, there's gonna be flying cars tomorrow, it's like, well, like relax, we're not ready for that.
It's in my head.
Yeah, it's just
so if I'm smart enough to build that flying car, then I'll get ahead and try to build it.
But if you also think like that they're not ready for it, they're never going to be ready
that's
for
true.
it.
Exactly.
That's
what
true.
I'm saying.
Oh, that's true.
So that's
you definitely have to get it in their heads.
Yeah.
And then let them start thinking that way.
And Armen can cover more about this because it's his vision. It's what he wants to do with it. And, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So.
I appreciate you bringing light to it. And we'll definitely have him on to speak more about it.
And if anybody wants to know, is there like an organization website that we can link below?
EqualityArmenia.org.
Okay. Yeah, we'll link that below if you guys want more info.
Now on a more comedic topic, who are your favorite comedians?
Ooh. Oh no.
On the spot, huh?
When I first started, it was Cat Williams, if I'm being honest with you. Oh my God. Yes. And then, I saw Dave Chappelle a couple of weeks ago at the Comedy Store, and he's always been my favorite. I grew up on the Chappelle Show.
Yeah.
This guy walks in, first of all, he's smoking a cigarette.
Oh yeah, when we saw him, he was smoking a cigarette too.
Yeah. And it was at the Belly Room at the Comedy Store, the small room. He's smoking a cigarette. Did not give a and he was talking about was so real, and I was like, oh my, like it was alive.
Have you seen his Netflix
yes,
he rapes but he saves?
Yes.
His bit on OJ, that was I was in tears. Like he was very
the thing with Dave Chappelle is I feel like you can literally be talking to him, and without him even trying to be funny, he's just a naturally funny guy. You know, when we were watching him, he didn't look like he was trying. Like you said, he wasn't giving a cigarette like this, just telling a joke, and people were
laid back. Oh
now,
my god.
I don't know if this is unpopular opinion, but someone like Kevin Hart to me, I feel like they try extremely hard to be funny.
Are you saying Kevin Hart isn't funny?
I'm not saying he's not funny.
Are you saying that? Because I agree with you.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of his. I know people are a fan.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. So I just feel like he tries very hard to be funny, and it's not natural. Like, I agree, Cat Williams, right? Or like, do you like Louis C.K.? Or like, I mean, I don't know what's going on with him now.
No, I like his comedy, and I think like he's someone that speaks so truthful. Yeah. And the funny thing is, he'd been talking about like
sorry about that noise.
No, it's okay. It's just an entitled Armenian boy with a car. He's been talking about masturbating in front of women for years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I knew about this, and especially being in the comedy scene, and it's a very shitty thing. First of all, I don't agree with what happened, and I'm not like gonna turn my back on him completely either. But I know female comics that went on tour, and they were saying the same thing. Like he does do that. I think what's going on right now with all these like sexual allegations coming out is the tip of the iceberg that you guys are able to see what females kind of like live through.
Right.
And it's the truth, but it's the way that
it's not just in comedy.
Everywhere.
Was it Fox 11 News, Steve? You know, the old reporter guy? He's
Stephen Edwards or something?
I don't know. He has white hair. He's been on the show for like 20 some years. He got a sexual harassment charge and he got fired. This was like a couple days ago.
I just find it weird that everyone's just coming out at the same time. Is it just because like you find like why like I don't know if this bothered you so much? Why did I guess I'm being ignorant because maybe just because they're scared, but like everyone coming out, it kind of seems not fake. It just seems like everyone's whatever happened.
When you hear an actual story, you're like, oh, just another one.
Yeah, it's like
you kind of lose like the thing of it.
But the reason why they're just coming out now because it's power in numbers. Like you said, they were scared before, so they kept their mouths shut and they wouldn't really. And then when they see someone else doing it, they're like, well, maybe it's not that bad. Which is funny because that's how open mics are. You go, you're scared, you don't want to go on stage, and then you see someone bomb, and you're like, what the I could do that, and you put your name on the list. So it's like that kind of a thing that's happening, and I think it's just the veil is being lifted. And I don't know who it was, and I can't word it correctly, but they were like after Hugh Hefner died, like the veil just lifted, and all these like sexual. He was like protecting all these deviants.
That's hilarious.
But, you know, I think that's what it is. And at first, even as a woman, I was like, well, why did they wait so long? But I can understand if it has to do with work, if someone has more power over you, they're going to blackmail you with anything and everything. So when they saw other people coming out against it, they figured this is the time to do it.
It was a safe space, I feel like.
I'm speaking of that power as an Armenian female comedian. I guess more emphasis on the female. Do you see the difference? Or do you get treated differently?
Absolutely.
In what way?
Every way.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, I think people feel like they could get away with a lot more with me. Like, I feel like, because I also do like private events and things like that. I feel like maybe when it comes monetarily, I might be, treated differently in that sense. Also, even though I have to say I'm very, very grateful for the social media presence that I have, because now if I say or do something that someone finds inappropriate for a female to do or say, I have legions of people that will come to my defense, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. But I do get messages and things saying like, you shouldn't be talking about things like this. You shouldn't be doing things like Armo.
But for a guy, it's okay.
Of course. Duh.
Isn't that crazy, man? Like, it's still 2017. It's like that.
It is. And I discussed that actually on my podcast. I wasn't sure if it's called Hookah Hose.
Hookah Hose?
Yeah.
How do you spell? Oh, just hose.
Hose.
Okay.
Just hose. Hose on hose on hose. And Misak Artinyan is the creator, and it's my co-host is Mofses Shakarian. And we do discuss that, like how the differences of like female and male within our culture. I remember like being disciplined for the same thing my boy cousins did, but they would get away with it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't.
Do you guys actually smoke hookah on your podcast?
We do. Yeah.
We thought about doing something like
It would just be a
that.
cloudy
Would have
room.
been
Yeah.
too cloudy.
Yeah, well, sometimes we smoke hookah and sometimes other things. And then we have like shots and stuff. You guys should definitely
Yeah.
like, check it out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
we
will. That's awesome. We'll link it up in the description. But that's awesome. I mean, is there anything else? We have Flappers. We're going to miss the December 17 one, but January 7th.
Yes.
January 7th.
And then we have...
The Big Bad Armo show, December 27, 28, 29.
Yes.
Nice.
I think we got it
Nice.
locked down. And
Yeah.
definitely check out Board of Equality Armenia.
Yes,
We'll link
mhm.
the organization below if they want more
When
info
does
on
this
it.
episode go out? By the way?
Tuesday, which
What day
would
does that
be...
mean? Today's Thursday, so in like 5 days, which is what?
Let me tell you right now.
The-
19th.
Okay, and then I'm doing a show at the Improv on the 22nd.
Where? Oh, I
the
think...
Hollywood
Improv.
Improv.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome. Okay,
Just a random
perfect.
American
You're
show.
jam-packed, huh? You're
Yeah,
jam-packed.
I
That's
am.
busy.
What's your day-to-day like?
Oh my god.
Writing.
Yes. Right. Well,
Do you-
writing and like
Do you write or is it just pure stand-up? Like,
There's no way, bro.
I don't know.
I don't know
What do you
anyone that
mean-
just goes
Wait
up.
a minute. What do you mean by pure stand up?
As in, like, more like
You think freestyle.
improv, like freestyle.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, is that what you think? Oh my god, baby, I wish. No,
No?
you have to.
There's no...
write.
I don't think anyone
We
does that.
rewrite. We rewrite, and like it's too much.
Yeah.
We write so much.
feel-
And if anybody says that they're a stand-up comic and they just go on stage and they nail it, they're lying
Yes.
to you.
Mm-hmm.
They are lying, and then you can tell when someone does that and they bomb.
Yeah.
Because they're not prepared for it. There's an entire like formula for a joke, like the setup, the punch,
Yeah.
this, that. So it takes writing and then living experiences because I write about myself, and that's what kind of gets me going. That's my day to day, and I also take care of my grandparents. So I a lot of my time has spent going to Hollywood and taking care of them and doing all that stuff.
Awesome.
Wow.
Well, Mary Basmadjian, funny Armenian girl, thank you so much for coming
Thank you
down.
for
Yeah.
having me on.
Of course, that was a great podcast episode. And from the Vibes guys and Mary, I guess
Yeah.
we're out, right?
Well,
Peace.
peace.